Hey guys, it's Brian again from Lake Hickory Scuba and Marina. In this next video that you're going to watch, this is a recent salvage that we did out here in the lake. A gentleman was taking his boat up and down the lake, running it, getting it ready for the spring season, and his trolling motor fell off. Now the location of where his trolling motor fell off at, it was actually in the center of the channel. It was roughly around 55 foot deep. Now luckily, right after the incident occurred, on his sonar, he was able to hit the man overboard button, so he was able to mark exactly where it was. The problem, though, as that motor sunk to the bottom, it didn't go down in a straight line. And typically when we do search and recoveries like this, whatever your maximum depth is, that's going to be your maximum search. So if my depth's 55 foot deep, then my search is going to be a 55 foot circle that I'm going to have to search once I get to the bottom. Plus, trying to retriangulate his exact point would have been much more difficult if he wouldn't had a sonar or a depth finder to actually mark that spot prior to the search. So during this video, I'll walk you through each part of it. We're going to talk about the visibility, the depth, the importance of staying up off the bottom, especially here in our local environments where our bottom's primarily nothing but mud and silt. And you'll see that as we locate the object. You'll see very quickly just how things just go black on screen, and we'll talk about what's happening here. We'll talk a little bit about the salvage of the motor itself, how we lifted it, proper techniques to bring it up so that you're not blowing your ascent rate or anything like that. So just watch the video, I'll walk you through it, and we'll see how it goes. First thing you're going to see here, this is the search area. This is a Google Earth image of the area. This is located here on Lake Hickory. The dot there in the center where it said search area, that's where we're actually searching. Depth was around 55 feet, temperature was 43 degrees. This is myself and the other recovery diver here fixing to go in. We're basically in the middle of the lake and we're starting to get into boating season. So there were other boats out on the lake during this time, and you'll be able to hear that underwater. You'll hear the boats up above us, just to go to show you how busy it gets on our lake. We actually made 2 dives on this recovery. The first dive was a 30-minute dive. The second dive was actually less than 10 minutes. During the first one, you'll see a glimpse of the first dive here. This is going down on the first dive. During our circular search pattern that we used, we got entangled in a tree, so I want you to notice how quickly the visibility goes away. The turbidity of the water of where we're at is just, it gets really crazy really fast, and your visibility just, it goes away. I think we had maximum maybe a foot visibility till we hit around 30 foot deep, and then it just goes complete black on us. Without lights, of course, you're not going to be able to see anything. But as we come down, I want you to notice the bottom composition. It's nothing really but silt and mud. Some of the hazards that we have down there, especially using the circular search pattern that we used, is of course trees and other debris on the bottom. It's very easy for us to get entangled in it, but you'll see all that here shortly. Basically what we have is just an anchor system with a buoy tied up top as our center point. Or our point of reference, and then of course 2 divers. First diver is going to remain at the anchor point, and he's going to swivel all the way around that anchor point as he hovers up above the bottom, trying to prevent any silt from being stirred up. Myself, I'll be out on a reel system that he controls, and then I'm basically just swimming in a big large circle, and after I make a complete rotation, he'll let out a little bit more line. I'll make another rotation at a different distance, and we just constantly do that until we hit our 50-foot mark. And then if we're unable to find what we're looking for, then we're going to move locations and try it again. Here you can see we're coming up on the bottom of the lake here. You can already tell it's pretty black down there. There's no visibility whatsoever. Here's one of the obstructions we came into. This is just a tree laying on the bottom here. There's actually some wildlife on it. You'll see a couple little catfish here. There's one of the catfish, a little channel cat. But here in just a second, you're going to see the string that I'm using on the reel, and I'm getting wrapped up in the tree, which really makes it difficult with this type of search pattern to search where we're at. However, the location that we're at, the circular search, tends to be the best option to do a good, thorough search of the area. There's another catfish laid on the tree. And it should fix to go into the second dive here. We didn't have any luck on the first dive because we kept getting entangled. We had to come up, reset, get a different game plan. This is the second dive here as we're coming down to the bottom. I'm in the middle of my search right now. There you can start to see the bottom composition right there. And like I said, without lights, you truly are diving blind. I'm hovering probably 3 foot off the bottom, so you can tell there's absolutely no visibility here. And then here's the motor as I come across it. As I start to pick it up to reposition it, I'm signaling to the other diver to come to me. And I'm just giving him three tugs on the line and say, hey, I've located the object, come to me. And now I'm waiting on him to show up. And you can start to see as he comes closer and closer, you can start to see his light, but you can't see him quite yet. That's the visibility that we have right there. As he gets to me, we're going to use a lift bag to secure the object and to slowly lift it to the surface. The bag that we're using is an XS Scuba 50-pound lift bag. It's got a long tail on the end. We're going to wrap it around the object a couple times, hook it to itself, and then to actually lift it so that we're not wasting our air, what we're going to do as we exhale, we're going to use that air to actually fill up the bag. So our expired gas is going to have a dual purpose for us. First we breathe it in, but as we exhale it, we're going to exhale it into the bag itself, fill up the bag to help us lift. Here you'll notice that it just pretty much gets all black on us, and we're truly working in the blind at this point. As we're trying to hook the lift bag up, we're stirring up the bottom, and so, I mean, you really got to be comfortable when you do this type of diving. Understand your equipment, know where your equipment's located. Like I have my lift bag clipped onto the back of my back plate, so you really need to be comfortable and know where your gear's placed. The lights we're using are, I believe these were the Mares EOS 5s. It's a very, very bright light. They work good for this type of diving. We really like them. Here you can see that I'm starting to undo the lift bag. I'm going to attach it to the top of the motor, and then I'll start to raise it. Now, as we come back up to the surface, we're going to have to control that lift bag by dumping some air out so that it does not get into a runaway ascent. Now, one option that you could do during this is, of course, hook another reel system. As you was to shoot the bag to the surface, you could let that reel out. That way you still kind of have it or have some control over it. I personally like to come up with the bag to where I can vent it as needed to prevent a runaway ascent, though. And here we're starting to fill the bag up there. And I don't want to fill it till it just shoots up or rockets to the surface. Like I said, I want to fill it just enough that it breaks it up out of the silt, and then I can slowly ascend with it. Of course, my ascent rate's no faster than a foot every 2 seconds. So as I'm coming up slowly, I'm reaching up. There's a vent on top of the bag that I can vent some of the air out to prevent that runaway ascent. Here I'm signaling to the other diver, everything is good, are you okay? Let's begin our ascent. We're slowly coming up the line now. We have the motor hooked up. We're constantly checking our gauges, checking our depth gauge, making sure that we're not coming up too fast. Now, on this second dive, like I said, we did make 2 dives to locate this object. It was a 55-foot depth. On the first dive, we spent approximately 30 minutes underwater. On our way up, we did do a safety stop. On this particular dive, being that we were underwater less than 10 minutes, we opted to skip our safety stop and just came on up to the surface. If you'll watch, as we get closer and closer to the surface, you'll notice that the bag actually grows in volume, or the air that's inside grows. And Boyle's law calls that. As pressure decreases as we're coming up, the air volume inside that bag starts to increase. So you can see that bag getting a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger. And what that does, that creates a faster ascent. So we do have to vent it as we're coming up. Here's Mark, the other diver with me. He's constantly checking gauges, checking our ascent rate. As I'm manipulating the bag and controlling the line during our ascent, he is double checking our ascent rate to make sure that we don't come up way too fast. From the depth we were at, since our ascent rate is 1 foot every 2 seconds, or 30 feet a minute, the easiest way to calculate it, if you think of it like this, however deep you are, it's going to take 2 times that amount of time to come up. So at 50 feet, we were roughly at 55, we'll say 50 for easy math. At 50 feet, the fastest it should take us to get to the surface is, and there you can see I was venting it to slow us down a little bit. The absolute fastest it should take us to get to the surface is around 100 seconds at a 50-foot depth. Now, if we would have chose to do a safety stop, this was about the depth of where we're at. We're about at 15 foot now. You can actually start to see some of the light poking through from the surface, so our visibility increases a little bit, but you can also really see the turbidity of the water. If you see all those small suspended particles in the water, that's called turbidity. And that's what prevents that light from penetrating down to the bottom to where we have good visibility. But here we're about at a safety stop depth at this point, which on this particular dive, we were down there less than 10 minutes, so we opted not to do a safety stop. As we make our way onto the surface, as you can tell at this point, the bag has beginning to get into a rapid ascent. Usually from 33 feet to the surface, that's going to be your biggest volume change. I was a little slow reaching the dump valve on the lift bag, so I actually had to let the motor go temporarily so that it did not drag me up too fast between that depth. And then here we're reaching the surface. And of course we'll signal to the boat to come pick us up.
You put us right on it.
And then once again we have another happy customer of Lake Hickory Scuba and Marina. We was able to salvage his motor in a 55-foot depth in the middle of one of our lakes. That lake of course being Lake Hickory. And the map at the front of the video also show you our location. So, guys, as always, I appreciate you watching this video. I hope you learned something on this. Learn a little bit about search and recovery and salvaging. Make sure you're adequately trained and properly equipped to do this if this is the type of diving you want to do. So, guys, as always, make sure you follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, pin us on Pinterest, subscribe to us here on YouTube, and as always, guys, we appreciate your business.